I guess we got cut off.
Yeah,
so
but there
sorry
it is,
about that.
I mean, we're back. We're going to call this now Brittany and Josh Tolley Part 2. I mean, it's great. You guys are so good that you already have a sequel. So,
I mean, does LA have a sequel? No, I don't think so.
Didn't take long to put it together, did it? So I'll tell you, I think we were left off right where Jeannie was talking about blowing the shofar.
Yeah,
so,
we bought a shofar on our trip to Missouri, and I was playing with it today because you know how here the Watchman has a unique setup in which the speakers are all on the back, and people are so excited whenever a session is done, everybody goes to the back and has like one-on-one time with you all because you're also incredibly generous with your time and meeting the attendees, which is really unique. And they have so much fun. And then when the next session's beginning, it's really tough to get everybody seated because they love you guys so much and they can't wait to thank you for all you do. And so we thought we might bring our shofar to get people back in their seats. What do you think of that?
You know, that's actually one of the 4 reasons why they would use a shofar in biblical times. One of them was to call the people to assembly.
Yep.
And so you're using it for the perfect reason.
But Josh, you might have to blow it because I'm really bad at it.
Come on, blow it.
I gladly volunteer. I'll blow it.
Let's see if she can get. Let's see if she can do it right.
Okay.
Oh, come on, try it right now. Let's see if this.
So
this will
hold
work.
your ears if you're watching this.
Yeah.
Okay.
This will probably blow us right off the air
Let's see if I can do it. Wait for it.
Good job. That was good.
Good job.
Good.
It's nice to have a wife that can blow the shofar. I mean, it really is.
I don't think anybody's supposed to do it, are they? I mean, am I breaking a law or anything?
No,
It means your lungs are strong.
Yeah. No, you're fine. You're breaking the law.
So
Okay.
listen, to talk a little bit, because Brittany was talking about, and you were talking about the craziness that's gone on out there in the world, and how now more than ever we've got to stand up. And listening to your show this morning, I mean, I was dumbfounded to learn that the liberals are up in arms because there's 1,500 female sailors out there in the U.S. Navy that they're going to have to reassign to land duty. And tell us a little bit about that, Josh.
Yeah, so 16 in 100. So for every 100 sailors or female sailors that are out on a ship, 16 of them are getting pregnant. So they have to reassign them to shore duty, and there's no sign of that trend slowing down. And I remember when the Navy first proposed this idea that, well, of course, it was the bureaucrats, not really the service leadership, but the bureaucrats proposed this idea, and leadership said, wait a second, they're a bunch of sailors. We know what's going to happen. And then, no, we're civilized people now, and sexual revolution. And they're like, well, whatever, we'll see how this goes. Well, what do you think is going to happen when you have men and women who are out at sea for 6 to 8 months at a time, who are not seeing other people? Like, you only have the people who are physically on that boat. What do you think is going to happen? Well, we know what's going to happen, and the Navy's experiencing a baby boom.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, when you think about what happens with these bureaucrats and when they hand this stuff down. It's like, what were they thinking? We have so many things like that going on. And I mean, if you look at Trump's address the other night, and you see the whole white dress brigade and all that stuff there. And if you looked at, I mean, personally, I looked at Nancy Pelosi, and she looked like she was just dying the whole time. But what a wonderful speech he gave when he gave tribute to the widow of the Navy SEAL, and he recognized the servicemen and all of that. And that's what we're trying to do to bring America back together again. But then
Michael Moore criticized it.
Yeah, Michael Moore criticized it. The other liberals criticized it. And it's like, man, now more than ever, we need to pull ourselves together. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I would think, and I'll let Brittany wait, but I would think that at this point, we're starting to see that politics is not the solution. You're never going to have a candidate that wins over the left. The left is never going to have a candidate that wins over the right. You're always going to be divided because that's exactly what they want. That's how they, in some cases, that's how they make a living. But this expectation that somehow Nancy Pelosi and Michael Moore, even though a lot of what Donald said could have come out of Bill Clinton's mouth, they're never going to agree with it. So it really doesn't matter. And then that's why believers have to start saying, hey, wait a second, we need to start forming community with other believers. That's what we really have to do.
And you also have to look at the whole reason why there is division, and it's because of the breakdown of morality in this country. So when we have a breakdown of morality, then nobody wants to agree with anybody, for the sake of being on the opposite side, and there's just a moral exchange of I'm always right, you're always wrong because we're on different pages. And the people stay there and they don't want to compromise to meet in the middle anymore. And I know that's a struggle that a lot of people are seeing, even in their own families. And so, working on this side of unity, yes, it requires a compromise in some areas, but at the same time, you can only go as far as the middle. Otherwise, you're going to flip over to the opposite side and just be exactly what you didn't want to be. And so we have to, we're at this time point where we have to stand up for what we believe in, and our point of compromise only goes so far, and we're waiting for the other side to let down their guard, which they are not. And so if that's the case, then we have to stand up for what is right and continue to stand for what is right, because we know that our freedoms are being sucked out from underneath us.
Absolutely. What a great segue, Brittany, into talking a little bit, about kind of our premise tonight, which is how do you become a good Christian couple, and what are the challenges and what are the rewards? I mean, you put it so well there about I'm right, you're wrong. No, I'm right and you're wrong. And Jeannie and I have been married for
11 years.
11 years, yeah. And believe me, it's tough sometimes because I want to put my foot down and say I'm right and you're wrong, and she wants to do the same thing, and we have to work through those things. And there's also the issues, Josh, you and I have talked about this, about as being a husband, how do you lead? And as being a wife, how do you not bow down, but how do you support and also lead the family? So why don't you guys talk a little bit about how that works in your marriage?
You want to go first?
Well, it's funny that you asked this question, because just today at lunchtime, we kind of had this situation come up. Josh wanted to go to a neighboring restaurant for lunch, and I just went grocery shopping last night, and so I had food here. And so my thought was, well, we have food here in the kitchen. Let's just stay home and we'll make something here. And he said, well, no, we already had a plan. And so for a couple minutes, we went with my decision that, no, we're just going to stay home and we're just going to not eat, or we can, snack out of the cupboard or something. And it was good because I appreciated Josh putting his foot down and saying, no, our plan was already to go to this restaurant. And I had already, slightly agreed to it, not so willingly, but I did. And so I said, okay, fine, let's go to the restaurant, because that was the original plan. And so, it kind of, it shows the ebb and the flow of the relationship, where sometimes someone wants something and the other person doesn't. And it's that give and take. And then finally, if the man puts his foot down and says, well, this was the decision, this is what, I want to do, but next time we'll do what you want to do. And, just working together in that, I think shows both the ability to compromise one with the other and show the flexibility. And I think that flexibility is one of the most important aspects to a marriage relationship. Just being able to give up, something that you want, even if, in my mind, it was logical to stay home with the food that's in the refrigerator and the pantry. But at the same time, we also have to give into the emotional side that's what Josh emotionally wanted to do. He was set on going to Mexican. And so, all right, great, let's go to Mexican. And it shows, just the working of a relationship. And I think that's a very important part, that it's alive and it's working together constantly.
And I think when it comes to lunch, as an example, it was more of we already made a plan. And I think that comes into that leadership aspect of men. Nothing against women. Women are amazingly special. And without women, we would have blown up the planet by now. So women are needed and they're wonderful. But there needs to be that decision-making process. And we already made a decision, so we're going to stick to that decision. And, you know, somebody who actually married us, the pastor that married us, him and his wife kind of gave us an explanation of this. First, you have to have a God-centered marriage. If you're not going to have a God-centered marriage, then don't expect it to work. If it does, great. If it doesn't, great. But in reality, you're taking a crapshoot because you're doing this divisive of what God actually designed. God did not make marriage between two people. He made it between two people and himself. And if you're going to exclude that one element, don't expect him to show up. But beyond that, the wife of the pastor's wife had some great advice. It was basically, look, if his decisions are not leading us into sin, then we'll follow them because he's the leader. He's the one that gets in trouble if this doesn't work, not me. But what happens is if he makes a decision and it doesn't work, and of course you take your wife's counsel, that's what she's there for, the husband starts to realize, wait a second, and my wife was right. I made a decision and my wife was right. If she were to tell him that, it would create a little fight. It would create that little bit of a fight. But because she submits and says, hey, I gave you my counsel. As long as you're not sinning, we'll make this decision. And because she is in that position, God shows him, trust your wife, trust your wife. So now that they're into their marriage, he doesn't do anything without her advice. And he doesn't buy a product without her advice. He doesn't get into a business relationship without her advice because he learned to trust her because she learned to submit to him. And it's not that one is lower. It actually elevates both. And that's why God considers marriage a three-stranded cord.
And in that, I'm glad Josh used that example because in that we see that the husband and the wife become one.
Yeah.
And when they're walking in unity, that is the most important place to be. You know, it's like we don't want to take a step forward in our future, in our life together, unless we are both in agreement. Because if we are out of agreement, then we're actually breaking that three-stranded cord. We're splitting it down to two. Well, it's just me and God making this decision. Well, I'm sorry, that's not going to work out for you because we need all three pieces to be in place. We need a three-stranded cord. And so as husbands and wives work together, there is a strength that is like no other. And it comes because of the unity of a decision that you know, husband and wife, how they're designed to become one in God.
And I think this ties into what I was talking about at the last Hear the Watchman, and I might put it into this Hear the Watchman. You need to have, as a married couple, you need to be on the same page with what the goal of life actually is. Because if both of you are just living independent lives, reading the Bible, 20 minutes at church on Sunday, and that's your God-centered life, that ain't going to cut it. But because that's going to create arguments, and then there's no resolution to that argument because the only option is to be self-serving. But if, on the other hand, you are both committed to serving God and God's kingdom, God's purpose, then you are going to have fights. We're all human. But then when you disagree, you go back to, well, what does God want? What does God want us to do? Are we moving closer to or further from what it is that God wants? And that allows you to correct your behavior more than beating each other up until one of you yields, because that doesn't create anything. So it's vitally important that a couple shares a goal, a direction, and a vision that was given to your family by God. And too often in today's world, we go off to separate careers and we don't have a family vision or a family goal. For goodness sakes, in the olden days, your last name was your family goal. Your last name was Smith because your family was a blacksmith. Your last name was Thatcher because your family was a Thatcher. You were a family unit. And that always allowed these families to have unity, which is why, as much as we complain about the ruling elite, the reason they're so successful is because their families have unity and purpose. It might be 7 flavors of evil, but it's still unity of purpose, which so many believing families no longer have because we just get married because, oh, you're cute and I love you, let's get hooked up. And that's never going to work.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I couldn't agree with you more, Josh. And you know, Jeannie and I, we had, when we started here, the Watchmen, a year ago, and we to this day have one purpose in mind, and that's to serve the Lord together and to gather as many of his people. And I'll tell you, when we're on the same page and we have God first and we're out there trying to put these things together, it's like this amazing, unstoppable force.
Yes.
You're working like as one unit for Jesus. And it's just it's an amazing thing. And I'll tell you, one of the touching things that everybody laughed about, because it was very cute, in your wedding that I remember was in your wedding vows to Brittany, you said, and I believe I'm saying this the right way. You said, and when we fight, I promise to always fight fair. And, you know, we got a big kick out of that, but that's what you're talking about. You know, if you're a married couple, you're going to have arguments, but if you're centered in God, then those arguments are going to be fair. Certainly, sometimes they're going to get a little out of hand, but then, you know, you have to just go to one another and say you're sorry and repent for the things you've said and come back together again, right?
Right.
Yeah. And
Something interesting, Mike and I were high school sweethearts, okay? And we were just in high school. We went to separate high schools, but we just absolutely were smitten over one another. Very innocent, you know, relationship. And, you know, Mike must have asked me to marry him like 6 or 7 times, but we were 16, 17 years old. And I'm like, no, I got to go to college and have a career, and then we'll talk about that. But I still was totally in love with him. So God put us together. And when we were together, we had just an amazing connection. We were almost symbiotic. And it used to scare me because Mary Tyler Moore didn't do it that way. And Marlo Thomas didn't do it that way. And I'm thinking, I'm way too dependent on this guy. I got to get away from him. At time, I mean, I would get afraid because he knew me so well and we connected so well that when I was away from him, I yearned for him. And that terrified me. Years. We get back together, having both failed marriages in between, to come together again, and we still have that same symbiosis. You know, we're older and we're more set in our ways, but we still have that thing where we're so connected. And sometimes Mike gets frustrated because he'll start talking, and I know what he's thinking, and sometimes I just blurt out what he's thinking. Like I'll take the words out of his mouth because I know him so well. And you know, even if at our age, marriage is still a challenge, and it's still, you know, a daily commitment to love one another, to try to apologize if we don't do what's in our heart and we come out with something more spontaneous that isn't right. So don't you think that, you know, I mean, you guys are in the honeymoon stage, right? But don't you think that the media and just our atmosphere, our environment does not support that kind of connection with one another?
Yeah, not only that, Jeannie, I would add to that and add that we don't teach love. We teach sex. We teach sex education. When was the last time you took a class on love education? And love is one of the hardest things to do. It's not an emotion, it's a decision. Yet we don't teach our kids, and schools don't teach our children how to love. So how are we expected to come together? Because you're fighting exactly what love is. You're fighting the, oh my gosh, he knows me so well, or oh my gosh, we're so connected. But because none of us are taught love, and that's actually what we're looking for, then we miss it. We sabotage it ourselves. We turn away from the very people who were the ones that God made for us in lieu of that sexual education course, and that's what we're looking for. So we have to get back to this place where we teach our children love education. And to be honest, more parents are uncomfortable to talk to their kids about love than they are about sex. They would rather talk about sex toys, sex videos, than they would love. And that's a problem.
You know, when
yeah, that is totally a problem. I mean, being in a relationship where I am totally madly in love with my husband. You know, we don't always agree, and we have our challenges. We have our, you know, when I'm falling down, he lifts me up, and when he falls down, you know, I lift him up, and that's what a good marriage is. But we love each other so much, and it's interesting how you're right. Nobody teaches love. Nobody really shows a demonstration of that, because our culture is so tense and on a treadmill, and it's money, 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 and sex, 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 and you know, spend, 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 and buy, 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 and look good and feel good, and it's all about me, me, me. Don't you think?
You know, when I first heard your story, your story enamored me, because, you know, we look, like you were telling all of us, you look back at your high school years, and it was like God was like putting you together, you know, specifically your hearts were like, you know, formed together. But then there came that time of separation. And eventually God brought you back together. And you're not the only couple that has had the same story happen to them. You know, I know other friends who had almost the exact same story, where they were supposed to be together and they never got married, and then later on. But the cool thing is that whenever God puts two people together, he has a plan, he has a will. And it's not just his will and all of a sudden everything is glorious. He has a will, and he is inviting us to do our part to actually make it happen, to turn it into something even better. Because God's plan and God's purpose in all of creation is that when he puts two things together, something even bigger comes out. Right. You know, it's always a growing process. You know, God wants to continue to create. I mean, when I had a garden in one of my backyards a couple of years ago, and I had all these different types of trees and plants growing, and it just surprised me from one seed. And this particular tree I'm talking about is a papaya tree. I was living somewhere tropical, and one papaya seed would grow this tree, and this tree would produce like 10, 12 papayas at the same time. The papaya is a really, really big fruit. And every single papaya had another 400 seeds in it. I mean, you couldn't even count how many seeds were in just one papaya. And that multiplicity comes in God's kingdom. And so it's not that God just has this amazing will and all of a sudden everything's good. Is that he is challenging us to be a part of this multiplication process. And like we're talking about, it comes down to the laying down our life. It comes down to love, where love is to give. That was one of the most important lessons I ever learned, that to love is to give, which Josh said, love is a choice. You know, it's not just this fuzzy feeling, which yes, it comes with that oftentimes, but it's to give of yourself, and you're actually doing more benefit to others by giving of yourself, by laying your life down, and by serving another. And, you know, just like Jesus did for us, you know, God laid his life down and brought all of us to live because of it. And there's just a beautiful dynamic there.
When I think, you know, Brittany and Josh, you bring up this key point about Christian marriages, and that's that God has to be in it. You have to both be on the same page with God. You know, Jeannie and I for me at least, one of the most beautiful things about our marriage is that as humans, at times we get frustrated. Mm-hmm. You know, we work long hours every day putting these conferences on, and believe it or not, it takes us anywhere from 8 months to even as far out as a year to put one of them on, working, you know, 5 days a week, and then as we get close, working like around the clock. But at times you get in fear, and I'll be at this point where that's it. I don't want to do these anymore. I mean, these people, I just can't, it's just not going to happen. And how are we going to put this together? And how are we going to pay for it all? And Jeannie will look at me and she'll say, don't worry, sweetheart, God's got it. And when she says that to me, I'm like, you're right, God's got it. What am I thinking? And then there'll be times when she's, you know, afraid and crazy, and she'll come to me and I'll say, Jeannie, don't worry about it, man. God's got this. Yeah. And don't you think that's an important part of a Christian marriage?
Oh, it is. It is. And going back to that funny part of the wedding where I said I was going to fight fair, I also said that I will fight for you, not against you. And I think that's a really important part of remembering when you fight for somebody, what's the goal? Is your goal to just obliterate them, to make them whimper and cry in the corner so you can feel good about yourself? Or is the goal to get back to that place where you were on your wedding day? That place where you said, you know what, I'm going to lay down my life for you. And if you're a man of integrity or a woman of integrity, that's what you're fighting for. So even though you might bicker, you know, around our community, we call it marital Bible studies. That's code word for.
Hey, we have one of those every day.
But you have to remember, am I fighting for you? Because think about it. You are smart enough to say yes to the spouse that you have. When you're fighting against this person and belittling them, what you're really saying was, you made a stupid choice. So you're saying, hey, I'm stupid. No, you weren't stupid. You chose the right spouse. Now fight for that spouse and that larger God-given goal and objective, and that's why God's so important.
Oh boy,
that sums it up. Good.
Yeah, that sums it up. Now,
excellent.
Now, you know, we're gonna kind of close out here today. You know, Josh and Brittany are going to be at Hear the Watchman in Dallas. We're so excited that they're going to. They were so excited. I want you to know something, folks. When they were on their honeymoon, Brittany would every now and then post on her Facebook page G-rated pictures of them all over the place in the Caribbean, I think it was. And every time Josh was in one of these pictures outside, he had a Hear the Watchman hat on. That is how dedicated he is.
That's right. Well, here's the thing. I just want to plug this a little bit. You know, I keep telling you that I want to be at the next one. I want to be at the next one. I do a lot of speaking. I'm probably gone 3 or 4 times a month doing something. But I love Hear the Watchman because it has so much family love to it. It is all about loving one another, whether it's 2 people who bought tickets and, hey, I'm going to give up my seat so your parents can sit together, or it's the speakers who are making themselves available. And, you know, it's a wonderful event. Whereas a lot of these events, as a speaker, you come in, you speak, they usher you off some back door someplace, and you're gone. This is different. It's like a family reunion. Yeah. And it's not blood of family, but it is blood of family because it's Jesus's blood that now runs through us all, which makes us family. So Hear the Watchman to me is really a family reunion. And I know it's a stress and a pain on you guys. So I want people who are watching this, get your tickets and bring 10 friends, bring 10 family members, because I want these to continue. 5 years from now, I want to be back on this show with a little more gray hair saying, hey, come to the next Hear the Watchman.
Not only that, but we also want everybody to stream online. If you can't physically make it to Dallas, you can watch from anywhere in the world. Because like you know, we've already plugged, so many speakers have so much to say. Everyone's coming from a completely different angle, which is another reason why I love it. It's not just, oh, you only go because you want to hear Josh Tolley. No. We have 18 different segments, like Jeannie said, 18 different productions. I mean, we have everything from marriage to aliens to, you know, Make America Great Again, Mind Control. I mean, you name it, it's going to be there. And it's in a safe atmosphere. It's safe for kids. It's safe for people who want to get baptized. It's safe for people who want to become entrepreneurs. Yep. I mean, every which way you go, like, there's something for you there. So, you know, use your online streaming code to, if you can't make it in person, it's going to be awesome. And I love going. I love working Josh's table. He's up there on stage and I'm talking to people in the back, and there's ministry happening. There's love flowing. There's people that are, their minds are just going, poof. It's great.
First time I met Brittany was when we did a private dinner for the speakers prior to the event in Dallas last year. And as Mike and I were signing the bill and all the speakers were gone, our waiter came up jumping for joy with tears in his eyes and saying, this girl prayed for me and I'm healed. Remember the waiter at the restaurant?
Yes.
You stepped out, and we weren't even, the conference hadn't even begun yet. But a miracle happened in our sight even before the conference began, because like Brittany, a lot of the attendees are intercessors. A lot of the speakers are prayer warriors and healers, and they'll pray with you. They'll embrace you. And I mean, you talk about a family reunion. Let me tell you something. When we have family reunions, I kind of half dread it because there's always some people that you just don't agree with, and there's going to be conflict. But at Hear the Watchman, a completely different atmosphere of unity and support and fellowship, and just people wanting everyone to be comfortable and to be loved and to be cherished. I feel like that we are all so blessed, all the speakers and we and all the attendees, to actually know what real family is by attending this.
Yes.
I know we're trying to wrap up, but it's just so good. And I want to say, as a speaker, I appreciate that, because so often as a speaker, especially like when you get to L.A. Marzulli size, when you're really famous and out there, you kind of start to feel like a little chicken on a stage. People love to see you, do your thing, yada, yada, and then see you. But I remember when we were in Dallas, I was up until like 11:30 talking to attendees while we were waiting for chicken wings. I mean, it was awesome. I got to be a normal person and just talk to people. And then the same thing was true in Knoxville. We ran into that guy who had an amazing testimony after we went to dinner with you two. And that was just such a blessing, where we sat in the doorway for 30 minutes hearing this guy's testimony about what God is doing. And I love that as a speaker. So it's really good for everybody. It's good for attendees and speakers, and it's just amazing.
And that's the thing. It's about the fellowship. It truly is. And folks, if you can't make it to Dallas, the next best thing is to just live stream it. We do a program where you live stream and you get 30 days of on-demand viewing, so you can take your time seeing the conference. You're not going to miss anything. All you need to do to avail yourself of that program is go to hearthewatchman.com and click the button that says live stream ticket. And you won't be disappointed. We guarantee the stream. So come and join us. Even join us if you can't be there in person. And you guys, I want to thank you so much for being with us tonight. And I was especially touched with that earlier portion at the very beginning. And when you were talking about the restaurant and the compromise, and Josh said we got a plan, and he put his foot down, and you kind of begrudgingly, but you did it. You said that, okay, we'll go have Mexican. I want you to know we have that on video. So when Josh comes home and says he wants a new Harley Davidson, we've got you.
If it's the plan, you have to stick to the plan.
So real quickly, to tie into that, it's true, and I don't know if Brittany's going to agree to this or not, but I've seen it, and I know it's true. As much as women sometimes begrudgingly go along with that decision, again, as long as it's not a sin decision, women actually respect the man for making it. They might not even like it, but there is this respect and this love that comes from, hey, wait a second, I might not agree with him, but he's making a decision, and I can follow a man like that. I can get security from a man like that. And the number one thing women look for is security. And too many men don't offer that leadership, so women feel vulnerable and scared almost every day of their life. So even if it's anyway.
Well, and I mean, I think that, you're right, Josh. And I think that as men, we've been convinced by the media that when women ask for security, what they mean is money. They want more and more money, and a bigger house, bigger car, all that stuff, which it couldn't be further from the truth. So folks, we're just grateful that you joined us tonight. For those of you that did, this is going to be up on our YouTube channel. Come on out, join us, be with us, worship the Lord, and be a part of the family of Hear the Watchman and the Remnant.
We'd love to meet you.
Yeah. God bless you, Josh and Brittany. We're so looking forward to seeing you in Dallas.
You too, guys. Can't wait.
Thank you so much.
All right, you guys.
Have a good night.
Yeah, you guys have a good night. We'll be talking to you.